Hello everybody, it's Julia here from the Highly Sensitive Tarot. I'm here today with quite a spontaneous video actually for me. I've got no notes, which is unusual for me when I do these kind of videos. I usually like to have a few notes to refer to, but it just occurred to me really in the last couple of days that perhaps I should do a little video about the archetype of the Queen. As I'm sure all of you, if not the vast majority of you, will know that the Queen has died, Queen Elizabeth II in the UK, and whether or not you're a royalist, whether you're pro the royal family, whether you like the Queen or not, or the royal family or not, it is, I think, without doubt, for many of us, it is an archetypal shift of one kind or another. It's probably the only time that many of us will see something like this happening. It is quite a big deal, I think, really, the passing of a queen and then our country to be ruled by a king. You know, to go from the divine feminine back to the divine masculine. It is quite a big energetic and archetypal shift, I think, really. And I've been wanting to do something about archetypes on my channel for a long time because they've been an endless, fascination for me since I read Carl Jung's works back in my 20s. So I just thought this is probably a good opportune time to try and start a little chapter on my channel about archetypes, and what better than to start with the Queen today. I'm just talking really. As I said, I've got no plans really. I've got out a couple of books and a couple of archetype cards to look at, and really this is just my opinions really. It's just talking. I'm not pro the Queen, I'm not pro the royal family. I think probably most of my life I don't even give them a second thought, if I'm honest. There's certain aspects to the royal family that I guess resonate with me just because I've grown up with them all my life. I remember, I was talking to my mum about this yesterday actually. I remember when the Queen came to the town that I live in when I was a kid, and my mum took us up to the top of the street, to the main road, and I stood up there with my little flag, and it was the Queen's Silver Jubilee in 1977, and I was 9 at the time. And I still remember that. So, the Queen and the royal family have been in my psyche forever. So that can't help but have an impact, really, I guess, of one kind or another. But as I've grown older and I've looked at the royal family and I've looked at what they represent, I guess my feelings have changed over the years, and I just think if we're going to have a royal family in this country, they should be there for the betterment of the people, and they should do good things for us. And it doesn't appear to be that way, does it? Most of the time there's always some scandal and somebody, up to something that they shouldn't be doing, really. Certainly not in a public position that they are in. But as I said, my opinions about the Queen and the royal family are not important here, really. What I want to talk about is the archetype as such of the Queen. And I was sort of sitting trying to think what that means, really. And I guess even before I looked at my books and looked at the card particularly, I could see that the Queen archetype represents mother, doesn't it? I think one of the key words of the Queen is the Empress, she's a mother goddess figure. And I think that's why she's got into so many people's hearts, really, because in the UK at the moment there is a fever of people wanting to queue and go and pay their respects to the Queen. And it's just become all-consuming, I think, for some people in this country. I'm sure that there are many people that have flown in from other countries to pay their respects to the Queen. And I think her passing at such a good age kind of thing, it probably makes all of us think about our own mothers, our grandmothers. You know, it appeals to that collective sort of psyche that we have about what mother means to us all. And I think that probably that's where a lot of the distress for people comes from, really. So as I said, it's really just made me think about what the Queen as an archetype represents to our collective and our individual psyches. You know, as I said, I'm certainly not a royalist, I'm not pro the Queen or anything, but I kind of don't like to see anybody being sad or grieving or in loss. And I do feel that in the country at the moment there is that feeling, really. There is a collective feeling of grief and loss amongst an awful lot of people. You know, people of my parents' generation, the Queen is all that they've ever known. You know, she's always been there. She's been this kind of eternal presence. And I think she's been a comfort to a lot of people in this country. Maybe less so for my generation, and, you know, probably even less so for every generation that comes after me. But I think for some of the older people in this country, she represents a sort of comforting figure, I guess, really. So anyway, I pulled out my Caroline Myss archetype book, Sacred Contracts, and one of her cards. And on the card, in her light attribute, she's written, radiates the regal feminine, uses her benevolent authority to protect others. Well, again, I would say that the Queen was probably regally feminine in many ways. She certainly sustained, didn't she? She endured. She was a queen as a maiden, a mother, and a crone, if you like. She spent her entire life in that role. But I guess where I have trouble is the benevolent authority to protect others, because I think I've seen very little evidence of any of the royal family much of the time being benevolent towards others. But there you go. These are merely my opinions, and I certainly don't wish to offend or upset anybody. In her shadow attributes, we've got becomes arrogant when authority is challenged, and controlling and demanding. And I think if you were to sort of reflect upon this archetype, and if it might be something that is in your own psyche, within your own sort of unique set of archetypes within yourself, you would want to be looking for sort of patterns of authoritative behaviour over others, whether that be as a matriarch of your own family, or in a powerful position in business, or in your community. I think they would all be sort of queenly attributes, if you like. But let's just have a little read. There's a page and a bit to read in the book Sacred Contracts about the Queen, and I would like to read it. And I'm going to also read from the Wild Unknown Archetypes book as well, just because that has a different take, I guess, on the Queen. So Caroline Myss has written, the Queen, or the Empress, besides having a rulership position in a court, the Queen represents power and authority in all women. Symbolically, her court can be anything from a corporation to her home. The image of the dark or evil Queen has been largely represented by male authors of fairy tales and folklore as a wicked force. She may also be depicted as prone to hysteria and dark powers. Influences or plots, as in the story of Snow White. Gulliver's Travels represents a benevolent queen who rules the land of the giants, but that is a rare exception. The queen archetype is also associated with arrogance and a defensive posture that is symbolic of a need to protect one's personal and emotional power. And you know, that's something actually that I've seen, I think, over the years with the queen, is that she rarely displayed any what seems genuine emotion publicly about anything. I think one of the things that many people will have trouble with the Queen about is when Princess Diana died and the Queen came on the TV and did a little speech, but she was quite cold and quite detached, and I think at a time when so many people were grieving and genuinely feeling the loss of the princess, the Queen really didn't show a great deal of emotion about it. And I think a lot of people had trouble with that. But perhaps when you think about it, perhaps that's the role of the Queen, is to be detached and to keep her emotions to herself, I guess. I don't know, she was brought up in a very different time to us. Perhaps when women weren't taught to show their emotions. I don't know, really. I'm just talking. So queens are rarely portrayed as having a trustworthy support system. Instead, they are lonely figures surrounded by a court filled with potential traitors, rivals, and backstabbers. Women who have identified themselves as queens in my workshop tend to have these qualities in common, suggesting that if it were not for their aggressive personality characteristics, they would be vulnerable to others' control. Challenges related to control, personal authority, and leadership play a primary role in forming the lessons of personal development that are inherent to this archetype. The benevolent queen uses her authority to protect those in her court and sees her own empowerment enhanced by her relationships and experience. But the shadow queen can slip into aggressive and destructive patterns of behaviour, particularly when she perceives that her authority or capacity to maintain control over the court is being challenged. The Ice Queen rules with a cold indifference to the genuine needs of others, whether material or emotional. And then there is a Queen Bee, who is a mixed image. She has the astonishing ability to power the entire hive without leaving her chamber, yet at the cost of enslaving the rest of her community. That's interesting, isn't it? So Caroline's listed some films and religious people here that represent the Queen archetype, and we've got Joan Crawford in Queen Bee, Marlene Dietrich as Catherine the Great in The Scarlet Empress, Geraldine Chaplin in The Three Musketeers, Greta Garbo in Queen Christina, Judi Dench in Shakespeare in Love, and Kate Blanchett in Elizabeth. We've also got Antony and Cleopatra by Shakespeare, Mary, Mother of Jesus in religion, later elevated in Catholic tradition to the Queen of Heaven, Mab, who is Queen of the Fairies and often a trickster who steals babies, possibly derived from the Welsh Mab or Gaelic Maeve. I think there's a Natu, the Mesopotamian Queen of the Sky, Marisha 10, the Japanese Queen of Heaven. There's Guinevere, who was King Arthur's queen. And in fairy tales, we've got Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, haven't we? And I think there are other queens in the world at the moment, aren't there? I think there's a queen in Denmark and Spain, possibly somewhere else, I'm not sure. But I think whenever we think about a queen, we typically do think about Queen Elizabeth II, don't we? So as I said, I think she has embodied many of the archetypes of a queen, actually. Not for me a lovable or benevolent character, but certainly somebody with a quiet authority, I suppose. So in the wild unknown archetypes, we've got this card here, and this is card number 11. So let's have a look at what King Kranz has said about the Queen. Where are we? So we've got here the Empress, the Mother Queen, and the Sovereign. Like her counterpart, the King, the Queen has a dualistic nature. Either she presides over the realm with grace and eloquence that comes from the heavens to uplift the spirit of others, or she falls into petty, contemptuous moods, casting a shadow across the land. If the King is the ego, the Queen is the expression of that ego in the world. So that's interesting, isn't it? As we're now coming into a time of having a king, of having King Charles III. If the King is the ego, the Queen is the expression of that ego in the world. Well, the King is certainly coming into this world in a time of ego and narcissism, I think. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just talking. The Queen is, where is it? She is the lotus bloom, the dancer's bow, the moon's radiant reflection. When the Queen is seated in her rightful and righteous place, she is patient and forgiving. She waits for the grace of God and Goddess to move through her, striving and grasping for nothing to be the benevolent leader, to embody. The Queen is to settle into deep trust, resolve and power. The Royal Queen fears nothing, for divinity itself cradles her heart. I think, well, I don't know. I'm not going to, I don't know. I just had a thought there and I'm not sure that I should say it. So when light, the embodiment of grace, courage, resolve, stillness. And I've seen that in the Queen, I have to say, over the decades, but possibly to the point of detachment and coldness, I think, really. When dark, vain, wrathful, self-righteous and demanding, and that's not a public face of the Queen that I don't think we've ever seen particularly, but who knows, in private, people can often be very different. They can have a public face and a very different private face, so who knows. So if you wanted to go deeper with this archetype, Kim Kranz recommends Nikki Giovanni's Ego Tripping, or Nina Simone singing Stars at the 1976 Montreal Jazz Festival. You could read Cleopatra's monologue in Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, and you could read about Inanna, Tara or Hera, who are all goddesses, mother goddesses. It says here, the Queen does not accept the hand of the prince, but she claims the throne, knowing the king draws near. She is a magnet for the fully embodied masculine and entertains nothing less. Again, I don't really know about such things with the Queen and the royal family. I think I think probably in many ways she was just as trapped within her own destiny as the rest of us are trapped, sort of often going nowhere, really. I don't know. I do also have another book which is about archetypes, which is The Wisdom Well, and I looked through this book and there's no actual archetype for the Queen as such here, but there's a mother goddess, which I think is to represent the Queen in her light attributes, and then there is a demon queen which would represent her in her shade. So yeah, I don't know what else I want to say, really. I've been talking for 20 minutes, I've just realised. I think that that's enough. I just wanted to put that out there, really, because like I said, whether you're pro or anti the Queen or the royal family, this is certainly a time of archetypal shift, of energetic shift, the ripples of which I would expect will be felt around the world. I don't know what having a king to rule this country, whether that will make any difference at all whatsoever to the lives of ordinary people in this country or to people around the world. I don't know what King Charles will bring. I know that he's very environmentally minded. I don't know what that will bring, either positive or negative, to our country. Again, that's a subject that I have opinions about, but I don't really want to get into in this video. So yeah, my feeling is it probably won't make a great deal of difference at all to my life, particularly. Like I said, I think I've been oblivious to much of the royal family over the years and the decades, except for when they're kind of thrust into our faces by some kind of scandal or drama, of which there are often many. But if you love the Queen, if you love the royal family, and you feel sad about this, well, you know, I feel for you, like I would for anybody that's grieving, that's lost somebody that's important to them. But I thought it would just be useful to do this little video today, to talk about the archetype as a whole, and to just talk about some of my thoughts and feelings. And I hope I may well be back at some point soon with another video on archetypes. I might even do the King next, we'll see. But there's certainly lots to choose from. I plan actually fairly soon to have another go at the sacred contracts, at finding my own archetypes out of this book again. I haven't done it for around 30 years, and I think it's a really therapeutic exercise to do. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it's just given you a little bit of something to think about, really, at this sort of momentous occasion in history, I suppose. It is, like I said, whether you think positively or negatively about the royal family, it is a big deal, I guess, in history. So there we go. If you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. That would be fantastic. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.